I barely remember that night.
I barely remember. I remember. But did you call?
Yeah. Go. So how was you guys' weekend?
It was a weekend. Uneventful. The fuck, Jack.
I know.
Wow, Jack. Way to bring the room down.
Yeah. I was completely planning on living vicariously through your excitement, but no.
Too bad.
I like that. Oh, man. Hey, Rick, before we begin,
Sir, yes, sir.
I remember we had a conversation about last week's episode. That was season 3, episode 4. What was the name of that one?
Season 3, episode 1 is what we actually moved up.
That was episode 1.
The law of vacant places.
Yeah, I wanted to just mention one thing about that opening again, and then we can start. But I think we talked about it a little off air, but it was one of those moments where I was watching that opening again, and why this opening is just such a good opening is mainly because watching it and at first believing that the guy that they brought in to the police for questioning was innocent.
Yeah.
And the more I kept hearing the I don't know what his rank was, the captain, I'm just calling him.
Yeah.
And the way that he was so certain on his facts, the way that he talked about, the difference between stories and truth, and that the guy that's denying all this is telling a story and he has the truth, made me think that possibly that guy was actually guilty, showed how important propaganda can be, right, and how that one scene can convince even me that, oh, he's innocent. But then because the captain had such strong narrative,
right,
then all of a sudden it made me question that this guy could have actually been guilty.
Sure.
And I thought it really reflect our time that we live in,
right,
because we're living in alternate realities of what's factual and what's true and what's story. But the ones who are spinning the stories are the ones that's making it for half the country sound like it's true. No,
right,
you know what I'm saying?
They have that power. There's dynamics of power, a tremendous degree of power, and that you start to question your own judgment. Sure, yeah.
Yeah, that's how cults are usually born.
You're right. It's like who has control has the power.
Who has control has the power to tell their truth,
right,
as if it's fact.
Right.
Okay. But anyway, we have a new episode.
My parents came from Eastern Europe, and so I never had a doubt that guy was in the scene was innocent.
Right.
It just felt like the stakes would have been so much lower if he were guilty.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
right.
And that to me, that was sort of the truth of that scene is, well, we know better. We know better than you do about your own life.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
Yeah.
And because of that, it, like I said, I kind of walked away going, well, he was so convincing. Maybe he is guilty. Did I miss something? And of course, the character in the scene isn't.
This bleeds a little bit into this in this episode, in the fact that, I mean, listen to the three of us. Like Jack brought up, my parents came from Eastern Europe. In many ways, it comes from that perspective. And here we are, Americans. Like I grew up in the States. In other words, I didn't have an Eastern European that kind of thing background. You grew up in the States. As Americans, like I said, we're sitting in that we're us in that chair. We go, dude, that's the difference from the dude who calls the policeman a Nazi, and this guy in there is sitting there going, just agreeing with it. It's just a different framework of what you're raised with, by the time this guy, his life had been lived, I'm sure in his world, the fact that you're being called in automatically,
terrifying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing they were always afraid of was the knock at the door, because it
Yeah.
meant that you were in trouble, and
Mhm.
didn't always tell you why.
Yeah.